Okay, here's what we're talking about. Oil changes. Should you change your oil over 3,000 miles? Remember back in the day, I remember my grandfather, you change your oil over 3,000 miles. You could let it go to 3,500 or 4,000, but you never let it go much past that. Oil changes religiously. 3,000 miles or 3 months. My Challenger is said to do it every 7,500 to 10,000 miles. I'm usually between about 4 and 5,500 in there. I just can't run it that long. Do y'all run it that long? My father-in-law, he used to run my wife's BMW and his wife's BMW back in the day. He would change them once a year, and he ran Mobil 1 synthetic. I know oil weights have gotten a lot better, and there is something to be said for that. But God, does that make anybody else nervous? Casey, I guess you could just look at the weight of the oil. There's also something you could do, like oil changes. You could get a sample of the oil and send the oil off to some laboratory. Somebody will put on a coat, and they will come back and test your oil and tell you what kind of deposits, if there's any metal in there, how much metal was in there, is there any water, coolant, other fluids besides oil. Just gives you a little bit of a health check on your oil. But here's a few things I do want to say. Extreme driving conditions. Putting high mileage on a car, that's not bad for a car. Okay, letting a car get on the interstate and run along at 65, 70, 75, even 80, 90 miles an hour, that's not bad for a car. It sits at an RPM and it just cruises. Think about Peterbilt trucks. They're sitting at low RPMs and they're putting on millions of miles. Extreme conditions is not traveling. That's not an extreme conditions. Well, I guess it depends on where you're traveling. But anyway, extreme conditions would be like summer stop and go traffic, like in Atlanta, rush hour in the middle of July at 5 p.m. coming off of work. That would be an extreme time. A lot of heat building up right there. Off-road, if you do a lot of off-roading, dirt and dust, RPMs up and down, jolting, jumping, and all that stuff, that is hard on them. Towing, if you tow with your vehicle a lot, like your truck or whatever, you need to keep that oil changed, especially you folks that are pulling with crossovers, like a Buick Enclave or a Hyundai Palisade or something like that. Y'all got to keep them oils changed, because I know they're rated to tow big numbers, 6, 7, 8,000 pounds, but are they really? You know what I mean? Just keep those fluids changed. Also, one other thing, tracking. Everybody's racing their cars and tracking their cars these days. If you're going to track your vehicle, you need to change the oil. I would actually, if you're going to track it, I would change it maybe even possibly before you go to the track and then after. Tracking your car ain't cheap, because the amount of heat, friction, wear and tear, why not have some fresh lube in there? You know what I'm saying? Keep it all lubed up. There's just a few extreme driving conditions right there. Stop and go. Also, something else. If you live real close to your job, I used to live 2.1 miles from work. My car never had enough time to get warmed up. Maybe that's why the Jeep blew its engine. Anyway, the car would never get warmed up. And so letting a car, like driving to like starting your car, moving it, and then turning it back off, that is brutal on a car. That is extreme. Extreme! Anyway, you should definitely let your car at least get to operating temperature, get to normal running, and then turn it off. These short, quick jaunts and letting them barely heat up, that's not good for them. Anyway, I hope maybe you learned something from this, and I'm going to learn something from the comments. Please take a second and comment. This is an argument that's been raging for years. When do you get your oil changed? Have a hobby.